Today I'm going to show you how to modify these Sinolin EVOX-R 2 projectors so that they will fit the reflectors from a Saab 9.3 headlight. I shall also show you how to take the beam control mechanism from this original projector from the headlight, this Hella E55, and fit it to the EVOX-R, which you need to do if you wish to convert the EVOX-R from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. Stay tuned, let me show you how. First of all, we need to take apart the Hella E55, the original projector from the headlight. First step, bend back the three little tags that hold the bulb holder to the reflector mechanism. You can put that to one side, we don't need it anymore. You will need to be able to hold the projector firmly. Now I'm using my vise with soft jaws. The next step is to remove the lens and its holder from the projector by drilling out the 4 rivets that hold it together. Put a little lube just on the end of a sharp 7mm drill and drill out the rivet heads. No need to go all the way through, just take out enough from where the metal is bent over. The lens and holder should then separate from the projector. You can put the lens and the holder to one side, you won't be needing that again. Now find the 2 tags that hold the beam mechanism to the projector reflector and bend them back, and the beam control mechanism should separate from the reflector. Put the beam control mechanism to one side, we will be wanting that again. The reflector also keep, we won't be needing to use it again except as a pattern for the holes. Now we need to disassemble the Sinolin EVOX-R. A word of caution, keep it in its plastic bag as much as is possible to prevent dust from contaminating particularly the reflector. And once you have got it out of its plastic bag, whatever else you do, do not touch the reflective surface of the reflector or rub it with anything. Grease and oils off your fingers have a negative effect on the aluminium surface, which will spoil the light output and will also have a negative effect on the longevity of the reflector. So take your projector out of its plastic bag, keep the plastic bag to one side, hold the projector upright with the lens uppermost on a suitable surface, and with a Phillips number 2, not a Posi number 2, undo the 4 screws that hold the lens and its holder to the reflector. I would recommend just loosening each screw off ever so slightly first and then take them all out and put them down in a safe place. Try not to let the screws drop into the reflector bowl, particularly these 2 top ones. Just in case you need to replace one of those screws or rethread, in case that happens, they're M4. Lift away the lens and its frame, place that to one side, you will be wanting that again. Like before with the Hella E55, locate the 2 tags that hold the beam mechanism to the reflector and bend them back and lift away the beam mechanism. Put the beam mechanism to one side, you won't be needing that again. And for the moment, when you're doing nothing with it, keep your reflector in its bag. We're now going to modify the EVOX-R reflector to make sure that it's got the correct mounting holes to fit the Saab reflector. And to do that, we're going to use the old E55 reflector as the pattern. First of all though, make sure you know which holes do the mounting. And an easy way to check that is put the reflector back on. And to make sure you don't get confused afterwards, what I did was mark which holes the studs go through. Now take your EVOX-R reflector, hold the 2 reflectors in the same orientation, bring the E55 reflector round, and what you'll notice is that we have 2 mounting holes that match up here, but that the Evo has no holes there and there. So get 2 of your M4 studs or M4 screws and nuts and locate together the 2 reflectors using the 2 holes that match. With the screws loose, just move that round gently and just make sure that your screws have gone through square and that the holes are aligned. Then very gently just tighten up the nuts. Then with your 7mm spanner and a pair of pliers, just tighten them together. Have a look from all directions, make sure that your studs have gone through square, that they're not at an angle which would indicate the two are not lined up. Now the two holes that are missing here and here, we're going to drill those through. For that you'll need a 5.5mm drill. Hold the two reflectors firmly in the edge of your vise using your soft jaws again, right next to the hole you're about to drill. Dip the end of your drill into a little oil-based lube. Oh, be sure that your drill is sharp. Brush away and blow away the swarf before you remove from the vise, and do exactly the same on the other side for the other hole. And remove your studs holding the two reflectors. Now we're going to modify the original E55 beam mechanism so that it will fit and work with the EVOX-R. First, straighten out the earth tag below the solenoid. We don't need that. You could cut it off, but it will get in the way if you don't straighten it out. With a junior hacksaw with a fine blade, support the mechanism and cut off the bottom corner of the high-low beam guide. You might have to just bend the last little bit off and blow the swarf away from the solenoid. The solenoid contains a strong magnet. For this bit you will need your two little M4 studs. You can keep the EVO reflector in its plastic bag for this, but we need to mount the beam control mechanism to the EVO reflector using the same holes that the studs go through. Make sure that the holes line up and tighten the studs down. What you'll see here is that the two holes that were where the lens mounting system connected to on the Hella E55 now cover half of the holes that the EVO lens mount attaches to. So we need to enlarge these two holes upwards by around 7 or 8mm, which I've marked with a felt tip. There are any number of ways you could achieve this, but I'm going to do it by drilling a 7mm hole next to the existing hole. Again, make sure your drill is sharp. Use a little lube on the end of the drill. Blow and brush any swarf away from the solenoid. And now I'm going to remove the little strip of metal between the two holes with a round file. If you look at the new lens holder and the original beam mechanism from the EVO, you'll see that there are small swages, these 2 feet, that have to pass through that hole. We're looking to achieve that those swages pass through those holes, and now you can also see the reason why we cut that little corner off there, because it would have fouled this leg. Once you're happy that the little swages on the lens holder will fit into these recesses here, bring the lens holder in for a trial fit. Now you will need to have felt tip handy, because what's not so obvious is that the lens holder fouls the solenoid just here. That's because the solenoid that fits in here on the original EVO beam controller is smaller. So just mark there and the exact point of foul there. That's all you need by way of a notch, just enough to give it some clearance. And with an alcohol wipe or a bit of alcohol and a suitable cloth, give the back side of the lens a jolly good clean. This is pretty much your last opportunity to clean the back of this lens. Don't worry about the front for now. We'll be able to get at the front again. Without the bag on the reflector this time, offer up the beam control mechanism and hold it together to the reflector with your temporary studs, and offer up your lens holder. I suggest fitting the top 2 screws first. Wind them almost all the way in, but leave them loose. A properly magnetic screwdriver is also very handy here. Make sure that the lens holder legs are sitting down into the little recess in the reflector as previously discussed. Put the screws in, but again leave them about 1 to 2 turns loose. Now remove your temporary studs, and by eye make sure that the stud holes are lining up absolutely perfectly. Hold it into position and tighten one leg down. Put a stud in, waggle it, make sure that the 2 holes are concentric. Double check that they're concentric. Once you're happy that they are, give the lens holder screws a final tighten. Move to the top ones and tighten those. Hey presto, we now have what I like to call a hybrid projector. It's hybrid because we've got the EVOX-R reflector and bulb holder, the EVOX-R lens and lens holder with an original E55 beam controller. This little lever on the side, make sure that that little lever is pushed up. For those who don't know what that lever's for, if you look at this leg that it moves up and down, that is so that you can flatten the beam if you wish to drive from a left-hand drive to a right-hand drive market or vice versa, without having to buy those stick-on beam converters. Press the plunger on the back of the solenoid and make sure that your beam changer lever goes up and down okay. With the EVOX-R crystal clear lens, you can look straight through the lens and you can actually see the beam cut off. And if you press the plunger, you can see it operate up and down. Now we're ready to fit our hybrid projector to the reflector that we have previously repaired and modified in one of the other videos. On each stud, wind a nut on, about halfway down for the moment. Follow that with a M4 washer. Do that on all the studs. We can now fit the projector to the reflector by slotting it over all 4 studs. Push the projector down until the lens housing sits into the reflector, and then come round to look at the front. If you look directly down the centre of the lens, you should just about be able to see the silver ring on the edge of the lens holder. And you want to set that so that it's central and concentric to the ring formed by the reflector hole. Then just very gently wind all your nuts up so that they meet the projector. Now apply M4 low cut nuts to each stud, and with a 7mm spanner or deep socket, wind them all down to meet the projector and nip them all down so that they just get a slightly firm grip on the projector between the 2 nuts. Do the same on all 4. Don't go mad, just nip it down. Now look to see whether it needs any adjustment. And you want to be looking across the vertical and horizontal. I can see an even amount of silver edge top and bottom, but more silver there than there. So that means I want to bring the lens this way slightly, which means lifting the lens up on those 2 studs. So I'm going to use my 7mm spanner and I'm going to undo the top 2 nuts. 1, 2, 3 flats, which is half a turn, and then bring the nut underneath it up to meet it and nip it back down again. Do the same on this one. Half a turn. I'm happy with that. I can see an even amount of the lens holder all the way around. The amount of lens holder that you can see around the edge is literally only a tiny thin strip, maybe a millimetre. Absolute military precision isn't critical because of course once you've got the headlights in the car, the headlights have got adjustment in both planes. A hybrid projector, as I like to call it, fitted and positioned in a modified and repaired and blacked out Saab 9.3 reflector unit. This is now ready to be rebuilt back into the headlight, which will be the subject of the next video. If you found this video useful, got some value from it, please give it a like down by the title, and I'll see you next time.